Moving to Thailand was one of the most exciting things I've done in a long time. It opened up a lot of opportunities for me, and I was really pumped to learn the Thai language. And I just thought, hey, I'm great at learning languages, so this should be a piece of cake. It wasn't a piece of cake. I don't know why it took me so long to realize this, but I started off by doing everything I tell people not to do. But all it took was learning this word in Thai to realize what I was doing wrong. I always say you learn languages by using them, not studying them. But with Thai, I just didn't know where to start. It wasn't like learning French or Spanish or even Esperanto with lots of materials to help you learn the language. There's not even a Duolingo course for Thai. I bought a book called Learn to Read Thai in 10 Days, but I did not learn to read Thai in 10 days. I never even made it past day 4. The book was actually pretty helpful for learning the Thai letters, but honestly, it was just too much to take in all at once. I also followed the Pimsleur reading guide, which just taught me all the tone rules for a bunch of words that I didn't know. And that was okay at first, but I immediately forgot all of the rules as soon as I stopped using the guide. And this is the sort of trap that I see people fall into all the time. They just waste so much time studying the language and trying to acquire all of the head knowledge before they start actually using the language, which is backwards, and that's exactly what I did. So I lived in Thailand for almost a year, and I could still barely speak or read Thai. Really, I couldn't read it at all, just a handful of words. I couldn't read menus at restaurants. I couldn't read road signs when I was riding my motorbike. I definitely went the wrong way multiple times because I couldn't read Thai. And a few months into living in Thailand, I started to wonder if learning Thai was just too ambitious. I kept trying though. I read through some Thai books with tutors, but that was expensive and the vocabulary didn't seem to stick. I also bought this children's book, and that's when things kind of started to turn around. It's just the story about a little boy who plants a carrot seed, but it's so simple I was able to read the whole thing twice a day, and I did. See how easy the pages are to read? After a week or two, I basically had the whole book memorized. And that was okay. It definitely boosted my confidence that I was able to read a whole book in Thai, but I don't often hold conversations about little boys planting carrot seeds, so everything I learned in this book wasn't immediately relevant. And then a few months later, I had my breakthrough. This word here is malet, and it means seed. And I probably read that word 100 times as I was reading this book. Then one day, I was going through another reading with my Thai tutor crew mom. The reading was called Bluk Ton Mai, which means growing plants. And normally, when I went through a reading with a tutor, we would do intensive reading. In other words, we would stop to study the grammar and vocabulary as we read through the book. And for the first time, when we got to this page, I started reading and I got about here, and I said, I know that word! I was so excited. My progress had been so slow before that point that it was honestly a rare occurrence for me to run into a word that I already happened to know. I had always known that intensive reading has some value, but that day I finally realized the value of extensive reading. In other words, I had learned some from reading this book over and over and over, but it wasn't until I started to go through a crap ton of other reading materials and seeing the same words in different contexts that they really started to sink in. Later in that same lesson, I just pulled out a plant and started having a conversation with crew mom about how you take care of plants. All of that reading had helped my speaking too, because now I had enough vocabulary to hold a basic conversation about plants. And my Thai has come a long ways since I had that epiphany, because now I'm just reading everything in Thai that I can get my hands on. It doesn't matter if I'm reading through a story and run into a word that I don't know. That's fine. I just ignore it and keep reading. There's enough words that I do know that I should be able to understand the gist of the reading, even if I don't look everything up. And when I do extensive reading like this, I can get through a lot more material and expose myself to a lot more words in Thai than when everything was just intensive reading. But that's not to say that intensive reading is wrong. There's a time and a place for both types of reading. If you want to learn more about how to find a balance between them and improve your language learning skills, click this video here. So check that out and go learn that language.